In this presentation, we will enter transactions into the purchase journal related to purchases. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info. The information will be over here on the left side that we will be then using to create the purchase journal. We will be entering data for the entire month of purchases here. Then at the end of the month, we'll have transactions that we will sum up, record them in a journal entry format to the general journal, posting it then to the general ledger, and finally seeing the result on the trial balance from that posting. Scrolling back over, we got the purchases journal. Remember that the purchases journal and these types of special journals will be used typically in a system where we are doing it by hand and therefore recording the normal type of purchase transactions. If we do a normal, and that's going to be useful because it stops us from having to record the accounts receivable or the two transactions, the debits and the credits, and posting it each time rather than, or instead of that, then we will be reporting it just one time at the end of the time period and just listing out the activity as we go. If we have an automated system, we may not use the same type of, we may not need this type of process because the automated system would be in such a fashion that we possibly could put the information in fairly quickly. However, it's still good to see the purchases journal because we may generate reports related to a purchase journal type of format within software. It's also good just to see how the accounting system can be formatted in different ways, what the similarities are, what the differences are, what the pros and cons are of different types of formatting. Now, the purchases journal depends what type of company we are in when we deal with purchases, but typically it's going to be dealing, well, it will be dealing with all the time with something related to accounts payable. So note that the driving term really isn't exactly purchases. It's something that we're doing accounts payable with, meaning we're buying something with accounts payable on account rather than paying cash. If we were to pay cash, it would go into the cash payments journal. However, if we're going to buy something other than cash, it would go here. Now, if we sell inventory, oftentimes we'd be purchasing inventory, and that would be our normal transactions. If we don't, if we're our service company, we might be purchasing, in this case, landscaping supplies in the purchasing journal. The account that will be there no matter what, however, will of course be accounts payable. That will be going up with credits as we purchase things on account, kind of like purchasing things with a credit card. So let's see what we have first. We've got the 7-5 first transaction, purchase lawnmower and garden tools from L&H and G company on account to be paid later, $1,500. So we're going to say the vendor is L-H and G, and we're going to say the accounts payable will be going up in the credit direction, $1,500. Now the other side, our default here, because we're going to be landscaping, will be landscaping supplies. That's what we're typically going to purchase. This, however, looks like we're purchasing more of equipment. We're purchasing a mower and garden tools, maybe something that we have to capitalize. Therefore, I'm going to put it over here rather than landscaping supplies, which are going to be more smaller supplies, smaller tools possibly, putting it into the other account, and we'll have to break that out at the end of the time period. Then we're going to say the next transaction. We're going to record all these, and then we're going to sum them up and then post them and record them as a journal entry, all combined journal entry at the end of the process. Now we purchase landscaping supplies from a company on account to be paid in the future. So we're going to say the vendor is a company, and that's who we purchased from. It's going to be accounts payable. We're always going to have accounts payable because it is the purchases journal, which basically means the accounts payable journal. That's 185. And then the other side, this is going to be kind of our normal account here. Now, because we're landscaping, this will be our default. Typically, we buy stuff on account within the landscaping. If we were to buy inventory or a different type of company that had inventory, purchases may be inventory, just depends on the type of company. What will remain, again, is the accounts payable being the same. And so 185. Then we're going to say next transactions on 7-8. Purchase advertising on account from B company to be paid in the future. So we're going to put the vendor here is going to be B company. And we purchased advertising, and so we're going to say it's on account, so that's $315 in the accounts payable. It's not going to be in the landscaping supplies because it's advertising, and therefore we'll put it into the other account. That's not one we'll typically break out unless we buy a lot of advertising on account. We'll have it in the other account. We'll break it out as we enter the journal entry at the end of the month. So that's going to be 315 in the other. Then we're going to say on 7/18, purchase supplies on account to be paid in the future. So we purchased once again from L, H, and G. So we purchased supplies. So that's going to be accounts payable, 140 for the supplies purchased. And that will go into our standard landscaping supplies account, what we typically would be using in this type of company, that being a normal transaction. So those are all the purchases we're going to record. This time, note that the purchasing journal, it depends on how often we have purchases. If we're a landscaper and we're always recording more purchases, then as we do more jobs, then this list could be quite long, even if we do it on a daily or daily or weekly basis. This is on a monthly basis, and typically it will have a standard type of account, meaning in this case landscaping supplies. But it is one of those things where types of journal, unlike the sales journal, which is very specific, the purchases journal could be purchases for anything on account, and therefore we need to have this other account, and those are typically the more difficult questions from a test taking standpoint, as well as in practice standpoint, what to do with this other column, how do we post that out. Let's put the totals down here now. We're going to say the totals. We're going to sum all these up, and then we're going to record them with a journal entry. So within X9, I'm just going to add these up, the 1005, the 185, the 315, and the 140, using the sum function. So we will say equals SUM, double click that sum function, highlight from the 1500 all the way down, and enter. That gives us 2140. We could take this item here and pull it across, and that will autofill, or we can sum them up again. I'm going to sum them up again just to emphasize that we are adding up the entire columns. So equals the sum, double click the sum function. We're going to go from the blank column. I'm going to highlight the entire column, the same section, even though there's empty numbers here. That's okay. That's the format we want to have. If we make changes in the future, we want to be able to add something to that cell and having the formula pick it up. We're going to be doing the same thing here. We're going to say equals the sum of, and double click the sum function from the 1005 on down. That gives us the 1815. Now we're going to take this information. Let's go ahead and underline it. I'm going to highlight this information. Home tab. We're going to go to the font group, and let's go to the underline and double underline. Okay, so now we're going to post this out. We're going to make a journal entry recording the entire months of activity. Not too much activity this month, but entire months of activity with one single journal entry using this information down here. And we might have to break this last column out because it's in the other column and we don't know exactly which account to put it to. So we will figure that out as we go. So we're going to say this is going to be as of the end of the month, 7/30. In our journal entry, we'll post the journal entry or record the journal entry here to the general journal, then post it to the general ledger, and then see the effect on the trial balance. Okay, so we've got the accounts payable. Now it's going to be a credit account here, and we've got at least a couple other debit accounts. So I'm going to put the accounts payable in there first, but note that we're gonna put it on the bottom in this case, but I want to see it first because that's the account we're going to use most often. So if we scroll over here, we could see that accounts payable is a credit balance account, and we could see in our table we're going to credit it, and that makes sense when we consider accounts payable being a credit balance because it's a liability. It goes up in the credit direction. The bad thing is going up, so we're going to do the same thing to it, which in this case is another credit. So I'm going to copy this in AH13, right click and copy. And then I'm going to try to put it on the bottom here. So I'm going to leave a couple spaces. There's going to be at least one, 2, 3 accounts above it possibly. So 1, 2, 3, and put it down here in AC19. So I'm in AC19, right click and paste 1, 2, 3. I'm then going to indent it. We're going to indent it, go into the Home tab, Alignment, and increase the indenting. Or you could double click on it, spacebar 3 times. And then we're going to go here to AE19, and I'm going to pull over this 2,140. I'm going to do that with a formula. Instead of equals, we'll say negative in order to flip the sign, and then point to that 2,140, pulling it over and flipping the sign to the credit or negative of 2,140. Now we're going to do the other side, which is going to be landscaping. We can do that just with this total number of the 350. And if we scroll back over here, we can see the landscaping supplies is our supplies area. So it's an asset. It's going to go up with a debit, as we see here, the debit there. So we're going to copy the landscaping supplies, right click and copy. Scrolling down, we're going to put that on top in AC16, right click and paste. 1, 2, 3. So there's the landscaping supplies. We're going to scroll back over here and pull the number over. We want that 325 to be a positive or debit this time. So in cell AD16, we're going to be here and pull over that 325 with a formula saying equals, and then just pointing to that 325 and then enter. That should pull that over. So here's our debit so far. Here's our credit. Now, we only have one more number in the totals column, but it's in that others area, and we don't know which account to go to the others area. This is the most confusing component, meaning we have to go through here and say, well, where should these go? So we know that this first one, this accounts payable portion is included here. We've recorded that in this component. Where's the debit side of this transaction that happened? So it's going to be up here, purchase lawnmower and garden tools. So if we look at our chart of accounts, I'm going to say lawnmower and garden tools. It's not, we didn't put it into the supplies, so possibly we're going to put that into the lawn equipment and depreciate it. So we're going to capitalize, that's what we're going to do. So this number here, we're going to put it into lawn equipment and then capitalize it. So I'm going to copy the lawn equipment, we're going to debit that amount. So we're going to break this total, we're going to break out between these two. So lawn equipment, we're going to scroll down here, right click and paste 1, 2, 3. There it is. Scrolling back up, we need to pick that 1,000 up and put it right there. So within AD17, going to say equals, scroll up just a bit, point to that 1,500 and then enter. So there's our 1,500. Now we have one other component, that's going to be the 315. Also in the other, we need to break that out. That was for B company, so the 315 purchase advertising on account. So we know if we purchased it on account that the credit to accounts payable is already here. So what's the debit then that we need to put that 315 to? It's going to be something down here. It's actually going to be an advertising expense. And this is going to be something that's a little kind of confusing with the purchases journal, because here we're not really purchasing something, we're holding not something tangible. We may use the purchases journal or accounts payable to pay for expenses in this case. So here's advertising expense. Expenses, like all other expenses, have debit balances. We're going to make it go up by doing the same thing to it, in this case another debit. So we're going to right click the advertising expense. Copy it. We're going to put that in AC18, right click and paste 1, 2, 3. So there it is, and then we're going to scroll back up and we're going to pick up that 315 here. So here we are in AD18. We will say equals and point to that 315 and enter. So there we have it. We should be in balance if we highlight these three. Adds up to 2,140, which is equivalent to the credit of 2,140, or if we add up the whole thing, this down here and over, it should add up to 0. So we've broken this out here, here, and here into these components and recorded. There's the 2,140, and here is the 325, and then the 1815, of course, these two, 1,815. Okay, so now we have our journal entry. We're going to now post that to our general general ledger, and then that will be used to generate the trial balance. Okay, so here's our landscaping supplies. That's our first one we want to post. Here it is on the trial balance. It's like, what, the third account down. It's going to be in the same order on the general ledger. So we have cash, we've got the accounts receivable, and landscaping supplies. We're going to be down here in AK23. So within AK23, landscaping debit side, we will say equals, and then point to that 325, bringing the balance up from 0 to 325. There's the 325 here. If we scroll back down, now we're in the lawn equipment. So there's the lawn equipment. Here's the lawn equipment here. So it's what, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th account. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Here it is, the lawn equipment in AS9. So within AS9, we're going to say equals, and I'm going to use the arrows this time, scrolling to the left, and then scrolling down, and there it is, that 1,500, and enter. We could also do that if you double click on it. It's equals AD17, and or type in the 1,500. Then we've got the advertising expense. Here's the advertising expense. Here it is down here on the trial balance. It will be in order: assets, liability, equity, revenue, and then expenses. So we're going to find that over here too. Here we got the assets in green, liabilities in orange, equity in light blue, and then the revenue and expenses. We're looking for advertising. Here it is in BE21. So BE21 gives us this advertising debit side here. We're going to do this with a formula, so I'm going to say equals, and then I'm going to use the left arrow and scroll back over here and see if we can find where that amount is. So here it is. There's the advertising. There's the amount, 315 in AD18, and enter. So that gives us the 315 in advertising. Once again, you could type it in there. A formula would be better. I highly recommend practicing that, or you can type in equals AD18 if we have everything formatted the same way on the same lines. Enter. Then I'm going to scroll back over, and that 315 there should be in advertising. We're still not in balance. We're out of balance by the amount that will be reported in accounts payable. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to record the accounts payable. Here is accounts payable in the journal entry. Here it is on the trial balance. We're going to record that to the general ledger. It's the first orange account, the first liability account, and therefore will also be the first orange account, first liability account in the general ledger. So we got the green accounts, assets, and then here's our first orange account. So we are in AT21. So AT21, right at 21. So we're going to say equals and use a formula and scroll back over to find that amount. There it is, 2,140, and enter. Now once again, you could type it in a negative 2,140 or just put equals AE19 and enter, and it should pull that over. That amount then should show here on the trial balance and should put us back in balance. And that's the recording of these accounts. Now, note we also recorded something to the accounts payable, and therefore we also need to know who we're going to pay. In other words, here's our accounts payable showing we owe people 2,140. The next question is, who do we owe? In order to know who we owe, we need to track this by a subsidiary ledger, and we're going to have an accounts payable subsidiary ledger tracking by vendor. So that's what we will do now. If we scroll back over here, we're looking for these accounts. We're going to record them again in the subsidiary ledger. So in other words, we're going to get to the same number, but break it out by vendor in the subsidiary ledger. So first one will be this item. That's what we're looking for. I'll highlight it just so you don't get confused. It's in LH and G. So if I scroll back over and scroll back down, we got, so here's our subsidiary ledger. Here's LH and G. We're in AS20 or 32. AS32, it's on, and we want to be on the credit side, so it's on AT32. We need a credit. Now it's a positive number over there. I want to show it as a negative or credit number in the credit side. Therefore, instead of hitting equals, I'm going to put negative and then scroll back over just like it was an equals but a negative, because that'll take the number and flip the sign. So we're going to scroll back up. Not there. That's not what we want. We want that green one. So it's way over here in X4, and enter. So you could put you could type in a negative 1,500 AT32 or equals a negative X4 or just negative X4 and enter. Scrolling back over, what else we got here? We're going to say that now we've got the 185 for A company. So I'm going to scroll back over to our subsidiary ledger. We're going to look for the A company. So here it is. Notice we're out of balance, of course, here. So that means it's not tying out to the trial balance or general ledger. So here's A company. So we're in AX32, AX32. We're going to flip the sign once again. So instead of hitting equals, I'm going to put negative, scroll all the way to the left, and then back up. And there we have the 185 and enter. So there's that. So that will be included in our total here. We're going to scroll back over and do this 2 more times. So now we've got the 315 for B company. So let's scroll back over for B company. Scroll back down. Here's our subsidiary ledger. And here is B company. We want to be on the credit side. B company, we're in AT42. AT42. Rather than equals, we're going to put negative. Scroll all the way to the left. Scroll up. And we're going to pick up that 315. So we're picking up that 315 and enter. So there it is on the 315. B company owes us 315. You could type in equals negative X6 to pull that in. Note this is summing up now all of our subsidiary ledger accounts. We're still out of balance until we record the last one, which hopefully will put us in balance. That will be for the 140. And that's for LH and G. So we're going to scroll back over here. We're going to find LH and G. Scrolling back down. We already have one in there. We're in AT32. AT32. Instead of equals, we're going to put a negative. Scroll to the left to find our amount. Scroll back up and put that 140, that last amount, and enter. Once again, you could put a negative 140 here, or you can put in equals or just negative X7. Once you hit enter, Excel will put the equals sign in there. So there we have that. And if we add these up, then we know that L, H, and G, we owe them 1,640. We owe A company 185 and B company 315 for a total 2,140, which should match what is on the trial balance, 2,140, and of course what is in the general ledger, 2,140. So that's going to be the purchases journal. Note that when we do the purchases journal, this is going to be the most confusing component. When you see the purchases journal, anything that deals with accounts payable, when accounts payable is going up, we're typically going to be putting into the purchases journal at that point in time. Anything that is a purchase but is purchased with cash, on the other hand, will typically go into the cash payment journal, not in the purchases journal. So that name can be deceiving, just as the sales journal can be a little bit deceiving, because it's really a purchase on account, accounts payable, and the sales journal is a sales on account, dealing with accounts receivable, not dealing with cash. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info.